Robyn Greene Arrington, also known as Robyn the Creative Doula, is an award-winning creative spirit living on purpose with varied experience in the media industry. Her passion is storytelling, producing her superpower, and writing her gift. Robyn has added directing to her portfolio with her short film, Exercises in Fertility, Long Story Short, which she also wrote and produced. The short film narrates the story through the perspective of a woman grappling with infertility and facing the dangers of maternal mortality. Exercises in Fertility has screened at the Sidewalk Film Festival 2023, was an official selection of the inaugural Essence Film Festival 2022, and its screenplay was quarterfinalist in the annual Fresh Voices Competition 2020 to 2021. Robyn continues to create as a writer, focusing on health and wellness, while as a producer, developing and shopping content across genres for various mediums. So without further ado, welcome to the incomparable Miss Robyn Greene Arrington.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you for being here. Okay, so let's just jump right into it. So what inspired you to create a film about the theme of fertility, and what message or story are you hoping to convey through your work?
So doing an infertility short birthed out of my infertility journey. I, in my 20s, learned that I had fibroids, not knowing then that it would actually follow me through most of my adulthood, fibroids and what the impact of that is. They're supposed to be benign tumors, and though they didn't cause cancer, they caused havoc. But in 2016, Martin Luther King's birthday weekend, I woke up with my left leg 4 times the size of my right leg, called my herbalist, called my friend who was like a doctor of PT, called my cousin who was a GYN, who was like, I could not get service all day long, and your call came through. And she was like, that is a DVT. And I had never really heard of that before, deep vein thrombosis. And then ended up going to the hospital. My husband literally carried me to the hospital. The fibroids have been pushing on my veins. And that was the same fibroid that caused the thrombosis is the same fibroid that saved my life, because it couldn't move. The clot couldn't move. So DVT is like a clot. And so that was like, wow, like I do have to write this story. And I wrote essays about it. And then I started writing a screenplay about that and doing the shutdown, which I thought was going to last like a very short period of time. I was like, I got to bang out this short. I didn't really see the necessity of it. And then it was like, I get this, like it really actually helped me work out some of the kinks that I had in the feature. Mm-hmm. And then eventually, because of the short, I was able to write the pilot. I could envision it as a pilot. Oddly enough, a lot of men, my male colleagues, were like, Robyn, this should be a pilot. And the men, it resonated with men so much more in a lot of ways than it did with women. And so it's just been a journey.
Awesome. Thank you for being vulnerable and sharing your story, because it's a story that, you know, a lot of, especially Black women, can relate to. And I love what you said about it, almost educating men who may not be very familiar with that, and them gravitating to that story in that space. So thank you. With that, how do you think your film, Exercises in Fertility, contributes to the larger conversation around the infertility and reproductive health, and what impact do you hope it will have on audiences?
Having topics that mostly are relegated to documentaries, which I love, I'm a trained journalist, but having them in a more palpable way for people who don't want to watch documentaries, for people who like to pop on the TV and they want to see a story. And in that story, they learn about infertility, or Alzheimer's, or suicide, or whatever it is that I'm touching on. They can learn it within a movie. So you're giving people an experience more than allowing them to feel like they're being preached to. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So what Exercises in Fertility offers that I think that documentaries don't offer is for you to be immersed in the personal lives of people going through a certain trauma or health challenge, right? So it's not just about that trauma though. You're seeing these people in real relationships. So Exercise in Fertility is about a couple. I mean, it's definitely about the lead character, Rin, and what's happening to her, but it's also about the husband. And I think that's what the men who liked my project, what resonates with them is that I handled him with care, that character. His name is Guy. You saw what he was going through as a partner, experiencing it, but not physically experiencing, but going through the journey with his wife. And then you see how the ramifications of infertility outside of the individual, with the most immediate people around them, but the extended family too, right? Because you still have to live through your friend having a baby shower or your godchild. And so that's what I wanted to do with this film. I wanted to have it be the holistic part of the disease, not just the disease, but you hear the stats, but you hear the personal stories. And that's what I wanted to bring across. And it's interesting because when I initially wrote the first draft of the movie, the feature version of the movie, these issues weren't swarming around. Like it was 2016, 2017, the issues that were on the table about discrimination and, disparities in the healthcare, although they were there, they weren't a part of the conversation. They weren't a vocal, big conversation.
Robyn, so have you faced any specific instances of discrimination or bias within the healthcare system or from others in your community while dealing with infertility? And how do you handle those situations?
So I've never directly had that, but once I started working on the short, I knew that was a conversation. And so I went back and I made some edits and some changes to highlight that. One, that the doctor told her some things about her fibroids, and she believed that. It's very subtle. It's not in your face. I mean, I want people to leave my projects, watching my movies, with a sense of, let me explore this more for myself, but it's not heavy-handed. I mean, I think that the project in itself is an opportunity to foster those conversations about maternal mortality or the inequalities in healthcare for people of color. And honestly, they're saying that women who have more economic stability have more problems than people who are poorer. Maybe that comes from the fact that people who are more have more money or more educated tend to be a little bit more aggressive, which gets a backlash from the doctors. I'm not condemning them. I'm just trying to figure out what it is, because people at maybe lower incomes often concede to doctors, and people just took whatever doctor said. I do not. But right. I also respect them. I ask questions. I come with information. And I don't let it go. I'm like a dog with a bone. I'm never going to let it go until I get the answer that I want. And I'm seeing how it's helping my mom. And I know what me doing that for me has turned out to be. When I was getting ready, and I felt like this was more of a gender thing or a doctor thing. Maybe it was because I was Black. I do not know. But I do know that when I was getting ready to have my hysterectomy, I was like, I want a partial. And I had read an amazing book by Dr. Stanley West. My god sister had told me about him. He actually became my GYN at some point, and he saved my life. Wow. He saved my life twice. He saved my life. He's the one who saved me when one of my babies had implanted on a fibroid. In the book, he was like, always ask about your scar, speak up for yourself. And I remember after that, I was like, Dr. West, how was my scar? And he said, Robyn, I was more interested in saving your life. I'll never forget that. Mm-hmm. And this man was never shakeable. Like he was always like, just whatever. In that moment, I saw the vulnerability and that he really was serious about saving my life. And so, but I remember from his book, it's called The Hysterectomy Hoax. Mm-hmm. He's like, don't remove organs, particularly your womb, your ovaries, unless you have to, unless they're cancerous. And so mm-hmm. I had a partial hysterectomy. So I still went through menopause because I still had the hormonal stuff. There's a belief that estrogen and all those things come from are needed just for having birth. It's not. Your body uses that for different things. What estrogen does, it has to do with your bones It has to do with other things that are going on in your body. And so whatever it is, whether it's gender, just being a patient and not being a doctor, or being Black, I just speak up for myself.
Yeah, I definitely hear tones of being an advocate for yourself as well as doing the education. So even though you haven't necessarily experienced that side of it, the discrimination side,
I haven't experienced it directly.
Right. Because we experience it with, our parents or loved ones. I definitely can relate to that. I still hear the tones of, for you, your way of combating it or getting ahead of it is, the communication piece, doing your research, coming in, knowing what you're talking about, knowing what you want to receive. I'm also hearing tones of, getting that good doctor, family doctor, or, specialist who will really advocate for you as well. And with that, is there any other advice that you would give to Black women, especially who are struggling with infertility, and as they go on their journey, any just further advice that you would give to them in navigating?
I think that everyone should read. I know it's hard. And honestly, I'm a reader and a writer, and I just don't even I have books to the day I die. If I make it to like 200, I'll never get through all my books. But listen, I go into the office, and some of it's my journalistic background. I have questions laid out. If a doctor tries to rush out, I'm like, excuse me, doctor, I'm not finished. And now because of portals, I can write them directly. And if you have an issue, you can also call your health insurance and say, listen, I had an appointment with a doctor. Literally, he saw me for 10 minutes. He should be billing me for 10 minutes. They might not always do that, but they'll understand, because doctors have to answer to somebody. On portals, they have to answer you a certain amount of time. Make the doctor answer you and say, I'm not finished. And have the nurse, say, well, I have questions. I start the meeting with, doctor, I have some questions. But come in knowing what you're talking about to a certain extent. You don't have to have all the answers, but have the questions ready and prepared, because they like to rush you and you get flustered. If you're not strong enough to do it, invite somebody with you who is strong enough. Have a person who can advocate on your behalf if you're not strong enough. Everybody doesn't have the same skill set. And I think often we make people feel like, oh my God, if you don't know how to advocate, you're weak. Some people don't have that. Some people are not talkers. But you need to make sure that your concerns are addressed. Don't agree to anything without knowing all the ramifications.
And I understand that you have started to add to your arsenal studying women advocacy. So can you talk a little bit more about that and just what you hope to focus on through your advocacy and why?
Health advocacy seems like the right thing. I write about wellness and health. And I do a lot of speaking. People ask me to come and speak all the time. And, it gives me a little bit more weight if I have an advocacy certificate. I don't think I'm going back for the master's. I think I'm not going back to class. I'm in school for a long time. But I just think it's the right thing to do. I mean, I want to incorporate it in my art. I actually want to be a health advocate and help people with it. And I want to learn. I want to learn like legal policies and the background on it. It gives me happiness. It's not even a job, but it's now my lifestyle. Like my mom, advocating for my mom. I like to edutain. So I work for companies and I do the mandates and the programming that makes sense for what their business goals are. But from what I write personally and what I do, it's going to always be steeped in health somehow. And that's my advocacy. That's advocacy in itself.
Definitely. And I remember, some years back when the Bougie Down Productions was just the brainchild, and you saying these things even back then, wanting to be, centered around just the healthcare space and advocacy. And so it's amazing to just see you actually stepping into that and doing that now.
And thank you so much for coming to speak to us about this really important topic.
And we are so excited to see what you have next.